Namaste. Welcome to Bodhi television. This is the channel we bring Buddhism from Lumbini to the world. Today we have a special guest. He's a media person and he's a Buddhist. Let's talk with him about media and Buddhism. He's Dr. Kalinga Senaviratne. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
How are you, sir?
Good.
Okay, how come you visit Nepal this time?
I'm doing a research project, which was a result of the first Asian Buddhist Media conclave in Delhi last year, where Bodhi television was present. I was commissioned by the Dalai Lama Foundation with a travel grant to do a study on the communication needs of Buddhist communities in South and Southeast Asia. So I'm traveling to Buddhist countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia and communities.
Okay, can you tell me something about yourself, your background? You are Sri Lankan and Australian and Singaporean. Please let me be introduced with your journey.
I was born and raised in Sri Lanka in a Buddhist family. Actually, I went to a private Anglican school, but I learned Buddhism through Sunday school in temples, what is called the Dhamma classes. So I got a good grounding in Buddhism because my grandmother, who was living with us, a school teacher, was very devout Buddhist. Then after I finished my schooling, advanced level, our family migrated to Australia. So I was in Australia for 20 years. My father was an engineer, so I did a degree in engineering. So my first degree is in engineering. I worked as an engineer for 7 years in Australia, but I didn't like the profession. Got involved with community-based radio with the University of Technology in Sydney, and that's how I came into the media. And then after 7 years, gave up engineering and wanted to work in the media, but I found it was very difficult to work in the media.
You were grown as a Buddhist, so when you went to Australia, did you search or did you find something Buddhist there, or what did you find?
I found the Australians were looking at Buddhism as a cult. Because just before I went, there was this bomb blast which was accredited to Margha, who wore orange robes like Buddhist monks. Margha is Hindu cult. And they tried to assassinate the Indian Prime Minister who came for a conference at the side in. So the Buddhists were also seen with the monks in yellow robe were equated with this Margha, like a cult. So I thought when I got involved with community-based radio at the University of Technology in Sydney, I wanted to do a program on Buddhism after I got the training in radio production. And the manager who has worked in the Maldives and was very familiar with Sri Lanka was very supportive of it, gave me a very good airtime on a Friday night for a 15 minutes program called Focus on Buddhism in English. And I wanted to explain Buddhism in a very simple way to white Australians. And I had to pay for airtime, so I used to get Sri Lankan, Malaysian Buddhist doctors to sponsor it. So the sponsorship announcement at the end of the program was, this program was sponsored by so-and-so, in memory of so-and-so, normally their dead mother or father. May she or he attain nirvana. That was the sponsorship announcement. And I did it for 3 years. And once after about 1.5 years, I offered a book written by a Sri Lankan monk on life after death and gave the phone number. Within an hour, I got 13 calls. All were from white Australians from the suburbs they were in. I could for a wide variety of backgrounds. So I found that my program, the Buddhist message was getting into a white audience. And even the radio station estimated I was having 40,000 listeners.
Quite inspiring.
Yeah. So that is how I got into the media before IPS offered me. This was my first, basically, a foray into media.
And how was it in Singapore? I think it's more liberal to all religions.
I don't know if you can call it liberal or restrictive. Because as a policy, the Singapore media don't want to talk about religion. Religion is supposed to be a private matter. So they feel that if you talk about religion, you're creating conflict. So I have noticed teaching students, especially at polytechnic, 17, 18-year-olds, they hardly know about each other's religions. Even often they don't know about their own religion. Now, I used to have students who say they are free thinkers. They are Chinese, Singaporean. Then I find most of them are from Buddhist families or Taoist families. So when they are from Buddhist families, few times I have talked to them privately, and I have said, well, Buddhists are also free thinkers, and explain Kalama Sutra and the Buddhist philosophy. Then they say, oh, that is not the Buddhism our parents taught us. We were forced to come with them, go to temple, offer joss sticks, offer flowers, chant for hours in a language we don't understand. So we thought Buddhism was a superstition. So that's why we want to be free thinkers.
Okay. Now let's talk about Nepal. You've been in Nepal several times, and naturally you have studied, observed Nepal's religious politics, you can say. How do you find Buddhism in Nepal's politics? I can say in general.
So
Where is Buddhism in Nepal?
Been to Nepal 3 times before, to Kathmandu and twice to Lumbini. Lumbini was more like pilgrimage. Kathmandu, it was for media seminars I have been. So I didn't really look at religion. This is the first time I looked at religion in Nepal because of the research project. I had the impression that Kathmandu and Nepal is Hindu because it used to be a Hindu kingdom until very recently. So I had the assumption that majority were Hindu and the Buddhists were a small minority on the margins. There is something very interesting I have been observing, like these were some of these temples I was told were Sakya temples of the Sakya community. Now I saw a very interesting amalgamation, mixture of Hinduism and Buddhism. Now I understand it is called Vajrayana Buddhism. But for me, I thought it was Hinduism and Buddhism mixed together. And you don't see the yellow robes monks we are used to in the Theravada Buddhist countries especially, or even the Mahayana, the lamas. And I had a discussion about it, why there are no monks. And I was told that each family have to provide a monk for 4 days or something a year. And one of the temples I went, they were wearing white, they don't wear the yellow robes. So that seems to be an interesting way of practicing Buddhism, which I didn't know before. Because Theravada tradition, they have monks in the monasteries. A monastery without a monk is not a monastery. Okay. So this seems to be an interesting model or tradition or whatever, which other Buddhist countries would be interested to learn about. Then at Lumbini, now I understand there is an attempt by the government and the Lumbini Development Trust to develop Lumbini as a major Buddhist tourism or Buddhist pilgrim center. Now I know Buddhist pilgrims come from Sri Lanka, Thailand, because for the pilgrimage part of it. Now, if you are looking at Buddhist tourism, there needs to be Buddhist communities, Buddhist festivals. And this is not a problem only of Lumbini, this is a problem of Buddha Gaya, of Nalanda, of Saranath, India also. Because India is also promoting Buddhist tourism, but there are no Buddhist communities around. So if you travel to Sri Lanka or Bhutan and Southeast Asia, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, I have been to all these countries, there's a living culture there. Around these temples, the monuments, you see Buddhist communities, you see regular festivals, and there's color and vibrancy of a Buddhist culture. And that's where in Lumbini that is not there because the communities are, I think, Muslim mainly. Now, I also noticed there's a lot of new monasteries that have come up, especially the Mahayana sector. Very big monasteries, lot of, there's like they have guest houses, very posh looking guest houses. So I was wondering whether, in fact, at Lumbini Buddhist University, I was discussing this, whether the Lumbini Buddhist University and these monasteries could work together in creating some form of Buddhist education retreats for Nepalis as well as for foreigners, where they can come and stay in those places. Otherwise, you have a few monks there, I don't know what they do most of the time. They may serve the pilgrims, but that's only about 3 or 4 months a year. What would they be doing? So there is a lot of scope to...
As you have seen, Kathmandu is quite Buddhist in comparison to what you have previous vision, right? And Lumbini in comparison is hardly Buddhist. And there is another part, we can say the northern belt, mountainous belt, where Buddhists live. I mean, the Lamaism or say Mahayana Buddhism is prevailing there. For thousands of years, they have been doing nothing but practicing Buddhism. It's not influenced by Hinduism, etc. Have you been there? I mean, are you trying to go there to observe the Buddhism of Nepal?
No, I haven't been to that part of Nepal. And I wasn't also aware about this part. But I was in Sikkim before I came here for a week. Now, Sikkim is also like on the Himalayas. And they also have a form of Buddhism, which for me would see as Tibetan Buddhism. But they argue that Buddhism went from Nalanda through Sikkim to Tibet. So it predates Tibetan Buddhism. So Sikkimese Buddhists see it as a...
This is the word Tibetan Buddhism has been very popular in the Western world, but there is nothing called Tibetan Buddhism. Actually, it is Himalayan Buddhism. All Himalayan countries from Bhutan, Sikkim, Nepal, and Ladakh, and Dehradun, and this Shimla, whole belt, including Tibet, follows the same Buddhism with 4 subsects. And they do not like to be called Tibetan Buddhism because Tibetan also means a political region. So in this way, what you have seen in Sikkim could be very similar to what you will be seeing in Nepal's mountainous belt, that is, you can say Sagarmatha region or Mustang, all the whole belt. I mean to say, this may give you another perspective of Nepal's Buddhism if you visit those places.
Yeah,
that is not influenced by Hinduism, as you have seen in Nepal, Kathmandu.
Because Sikkim, there is no the type of Hindu influences.
They don't have to face this kind of confrontation with Hindus. They are free.
Yeah. So that's why when I was in Sikkim, I thought, now I noticed the Sikkim Tourism authorities are funding monasteries to build a guest house. Now their idea is, by building that guest house, they could promote tourists to come and stay a couple of days. And then it's a monastery's responsibility to provide programs to attract them. Maybe meditation, maybe even an introduction to the Himalayan Buddhism. And because it's very colorful rituals also, and somebody who's not of that tradition would find it interesting first to do a retreat during the day and then experience the rituals.
Tourists will also learn about Buddhism while they're staying there.
So the Sikkimese tourism authorities are promoting that. And that part of India has the advantage of having a living Buddhist communities around. So it's not just monuments and monasteries without a community around. They have a community there.
Did you find this living community in Kathmandu?
Yeah, now especially around Patan, where I have been walking around, I see it every day in the mornings, evenings. They go to the temple. The temple and the people seem to react.
You'll be surprised. We in Kathmandu we follow Mahayana, Vajrayana and Theravada at the same time. Those people are in a very good harmony, and this must be the only place in the whole world where 3 sects of Buddhism are living together and functioning together in a good harmony.
Yeah, actually this morning I was at a temple of a Sakya community, They were singing, the group was singing. And now in Sri Lanka also we have what is called Bhaktigi, very similar to having orchestra, a similar orchestra and songs about Buddhism, about the Buddha. I suppose you were singing in Nepali maybe, but these are songs about Buddhism. Then there was the Buddha Puja, and then there were two nuns who came and gave the precepts in Pali. Now that's exactly the same you will find in a Sri Lankan temple or a Thailand temple, Theravada temple. Yeah, so that was Theravada there. So yeah, so that's something I suppose Bodhi TV can do some program. I think the Buddhists, especially in the West, those who are also taking Buddhism to the West, and there are a number of monks. Buddhanet is one example, which are done by Caucasian white monks who have been trained in Thailand and Sri Lanka and places like that, and they have been using the internet very effectively in spreading Buddhism. And Dalai Lama has also played a great role because Dalai Lama has preached what you may call pure Buddhism without the sectarian divisions which goes with the rituals. But when he talks the philosophy, it's Theravadians can also relate to it as well as Mahayana. So he and then the Buddhist message, the philosophy, is been quite effectively propagated around the world, especially to the West through social media. Now, what we need to do in Asia is we have to propagate this same message, same way to Asians. Like I said earlier, children of Asian Buddhists need to get this message that way, the philosophy. Okay, so that they don't see Buddhism as a ritual. And that's the challenge facing now. To reach Chinese, we will have to do it in Mandarin, not in English. Okay, so to reach the Thais, it has to be done in Thai. Now, when I was teaching in Thailand, I asked a class, we had 30 students, 3 of them were Muslims, others claimed to be Buddhists. I wanted to use Panchasila to discuss with them how to use those principles in investigating corruption as investigative journalism exercise. So when I asked about Panchasila, they seemed clueless what this is. Then I asked them, don't you go to the temple and take Kama Sumichachara, Surameria Majjapamadattana, all these, the 5 precepts, which I know which they do every time they go to the temple. They do. But one student told me later that is to get merit. So I asked him, how can you get merit if you don't practice the 5 precepts? Okay, so they take these precepts in Pali, which they don't understand, and so they don't know what these precepts are. So I had to explain the precepts in simple English to them, and then show how it can be applied. So that now that's again, it's a challenge we need to face in the media. And media needs to play a role in going beyond this culture of chanting and taking precepts in a language which nobody speaks today. It's important to learn the Buddhist scriptures knowing Pali, okay, and study the Buddhist scriptures. But you need to, media has to come in to fill the link from the scriptures to the public in your own languages.
How we can use media in propagating Buddha's teaching?
Because I am a believer that a lot of what you call Buddhist media across Asia, what they have been doing for more than a decade now, you have a monk in front of a camera giving a sermon for about an hour. But I think we need to change the packaging of it because not many people will watch a monk giving a sermon for an hour. You can take excerpts out of it and you have to build a program around it, what you call voice grabs in the media, and then put other pictures into it, build like a feature. And one of the channels we are planning is a music channel. You can call it Buddhist MTV or Dhamma MTV or whatever you want. Maybe. Okay. And to do these song clips, so watching those people singing this morning, I thought if the music sounds nice, you can sing in Nepali, Buddha's message, but subtitle it in English, and we broadcast a 3-minute clip and with English subtitles, and hopefully the message can go through to non-Nepali speakers as well.
Yeah, you mean to say we need some new ventures to attract young generation?
Yeah, because the young people, I find their attention span is not that long because they get distracted from so many things. Even a Dhammapada, I have been thinking we could make 1-minute clips with the Dhammapada verse with some pictures cut in. So the message, while you may have the message on as subtitles, the pictures could give the message. So Dhammapada can be also packaged that way. And we need to, now we have the skills, media skills, but we have to be imaginative and think out of the box. Now I have seen in Tibetan monasteries where they train young children that debating thing, okay? And we should bring that into television. Now, I don't know if we can get monks to do that, but to debate that could also attract attention. You mean the eyeballs? Okay, that type of, rather than sitting very rigid in a panel discussion and discussing, that type of debate about the Dhamma. You know, maybe you can try it here because you're closer to the Tibetan culture.
How can a Buddhist channel survive in this situation?
That's the problem. It's a problem I have faced trying to develop Lotus Communication Network, communication channel, trying to propagate Buddhist ideas through this, through features. Feature writing, feature reporting, like those song clips and podcasts, radio podcasts, things like that. To get it funded is a problem. Media. Now I'm working with IBC, International Buddhist Confederation, in trying to develop this media. That's why I'm doing this study also to develop a strategy. The biggest problem we have is to attract money. Buddhists are not poor. There are a lot of very rich Buddhists.
How we can channelize that donors into media area?
It is also especially in the Confucius culture, where the Confucius culture is very controlled. People don't speak that easily.
Lastly, I can ask you, you have been running this Lotus Communication Network kind of thing. Okay, and we are in our region doing this Bodhi channel, you can say. How we can work together so that our needs may be supported by you and we can be your part. What can we do?
Communication Network, it's not a production house, it's not a media as such. I have a website. What I'm trying to do is to network among Buddhist communicators, Buddhist media people, to network and create a regional network. So you have the Bodhi channel, that's why the IPTV project I was just discussing here in the office. Now, we want to set up a consortium called Lotus TV Consortium, where Bodhi, a number of Buddhist channels in the region, your channel, then Buddhist channel in Sri Lanka, then Thai PBS, Public Service Broadcasting, then there's a channel called Tathagata TV in India, and there's also a channel I have spoken to in Myanmar, which is called BuddhaNet or something, satellite television. They're all interested in becoming part of it. They all broadcast in their own languages. So we want to create an English language network. So what we need is to pull some programming out from each of you and subtitle it in English or dub it into English, or we may commission special programs in English. For that we need money. And that's where I could have launched this project a year ago, because there's two companies, one in Singapore and one in Malaysia, both run by Buddhists, IT companies. They have offered to create the platform. They say they can do it overnight, create the IPTV platform for free. But to make it economically viable, we need some funds. So that's the challenge I'm trying to convince some people, some rich Buddhists, to create this fund so that we can launch. And we are hoping next year we will be able to do it.
As you have said, we can make a network of Buddhist broadcasters in Buddhist region, I mean Southeast Asia. And for example, from my point of view, we are producing programs for Nepali audience. It is Nepali Buddhist programs. I suppose this program could be interesting to Buddhists in Thailand. If so, we can make a subtitle and we can, not the proper way, but we can sell this program to Thai audience, and we can buy television programs from Thailand so that Nepali Buddhist audience would be interested in that. How we can manage this kind of, say, cultural exchange kind of thing in among the television networks?
So what I'm looking at as a consortium partners, you may provide programs to be dubbed into English for this channel. But at the same time, the other channels could also take these programs and broadcast. For example, a Thai contribution you can broadcast here, or a Sri Lankan contribution, and vice versa. That may not need money as such, but we need a bit of money to have it going, and we would like to commission special. Like if we want song clips from different countries, we can give idea. Okay, this month we do on this theme. Next month on this team, get us a song. So you have to record it, you have to package it. For that involves time. So we would like some fun where we could give something, provide some money to cover your costs. Involves corruption. If you're investigating corruption, so all 5 can be used to analyze corruption. So there's then Paticca Samuppada. Dependent origination is a sustainable development goals. One goal is dependent on the other one, achieving the other one. So those principles can be brought into a communication strategy to train communicators to think that way. Then impermanence. Because everything is impermanent, that's why we have climatic change, we have conflicts. It's a process of change. And when we have the event, we go and report it, and report it as a conflict. But if we understand impermanence, how things change, and if we can report the changes as it happens, then the event won't be a big issue. we know what is behind it, and event may even not happen if we report on the process, so people will be aware and look for solutions before the big event happens.
That means we are teaching the journalists to look at the issues from Buddhist perspectives and find out a resolution without taking the issue into conflicts.
Yeah, it's Buddhist, but we say Asian wisdom. Now I have given this lecture to Muslims, Ismailis in the University of Central Asia in Kyrgyzstan recently. And 3 weeks ago I gave a lecture at the University of Chittagong to Muslim students. And I said, you go to the Quran, you will see the same principles there. Okay. So we are not teaching Buddhism, but I'm pointing out this comes from Buddhist roots, but anybody can adopt it. You don't need to become a Buddhist to communicate that way.
Thank you very much for coming to our Bodhi television and giving us this kind of enlightenment, we can say. We can now understand how Buddhism could be related to media for our benefit, we can say, to reach our goals. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to.
Well, we were talking with Dr. Kalinga Senaviratne. He is a media expert. We talked with him about media and Buddhism. Thank you for being with us. Keep watching Bodhi television. Namaste.